trade both ways right now. I don't know the exact number, or is it 2.6? Sorry, not 2.6 billion. Not. Now, one is The Economist put out an article the other day which said the potential is 25 billion. Right now, the amount of trade which takes place through third countries, whether it's Sri Lanka, Dubai, Singapore, etc. Nobody has an actual fix on this, but it's already order of magnitude of 2.6 billion. And neither the Indian producer or the Pakistani producer or the Indian consumer or the Pakistan consumer benefits from this at all. So it makes eminent sense for us to open this more. So I'm going to stop here only by saying that the opportunity for Pakistan in training, in IT, in healthcare, in education, in leather goods, in textiles and agriculture goods, and by the way, in the four industries which are resisting this, is absolutely tremendous. India will become the center for small car manufacturing in the world within the next 10 years, actually within the next 5 years now. So you could import, if not cars, you could import components and make your cars more competitive. You could import more components from North India and make your two-wheelers more competitive. So the opportunity for both sides is tremendous. There is every reason for us to push forward, and good luck to those who are actually carrying this flag.
Thank you very much, Sunil. May I now invite a few questions from the floor? I see one hand rising there, please. Please introduce yourself and make your question brief.
So, Pakistani export to India rose 66% between April and December, while Indian exports to Pakistan rose by 16%. Despite that, MFN was not granted on time. You said only 15% tariff lines are now in negative list. But the fact is that the potential of trade in these 15% tariff lines actually outweighs the 85% on which trade is allowed. You said there is a political consensus on trade with India, but Jamaat, one of the leading Islamist party, opposes it. Defy Pakistan protests against trade with India, and it is well known that Defy Pakistan is controlled from Rawalpindi. ISPR made a statement that they have a view on trade with India. Recent developments across LOC are also believed to have been controlled from Rawalpindi. So my question is, how can trade be normalized as long as decisions are taken in Rawalpindi rather than in Islamabad?
Thank you. Nitish Sengupta.
A small question, which is that why did it take Pakistan 9 long years to return to India the most favored nation treatment, which India gave 9 years ago, and even now there seem to be problems.
Decades ago, not 9 years ago.
Please.
This is Mukherjee from RIS. As my understanding goes, India was to reduce its sensitive list with Pakistan by 30%. On the condition that Pakistan would be removing its negative list by the end of last year. Unfortunately, this has not happened. An opportunity to do so would have enabled Pakistan to target those very products in which the tariff rates are high. And this was an opportunity that Pakistan could have taken had it adhered to the schedule. However, there may be reasons that Pakistan has somehow, slipped on the deadline doesn't mean that Pakistan is not concerned with this. I understand Pakistan is looking more seriously at the negative list. And I'm also aware that certain products in the negative list could remain for a longer period. For instance, tobacco and cigarettes, they are in Pakistan's negative list, and India does not allow that. So why should Pakistan? But the decision should be taken and some time frame set out for this. Because the reason why I'm saying is that should be urgent is that so far we work on the positive list approach until such times as this has been taken out. There were some anomalies in the positive list approach, and I would like to mention 2 of them. These anomalies as that number
I
of
think
products,
you basically made the point. So let's, I think we have someone at that end. Please.
I'm Indira Murthy, and I'm from the wrong side and the most hated side, that is the bureaucracy. I am the director in Ministry of Commerce, looking after the South Asia desk for more than a couple of years now. One thing at the beginning I would want to say, there are a few comments, there are no questions. The comments are, the first one is, as far as bureaucracy is concerned and all its wrongdoings, I think the policy is made based on the facts received by the bureaucracy. So instead of stopping talking to bureaucracy, I think the interaction should be more, and more comments should be received by the bureaucracy so that you get a policy which you will like to have. And commenting on the paper, as far as India's lead role is concerned, this is already given in the joint statement taken out in September during the Commerce Secretary level talks, in which India has said that the moment Pakistan removes its restrictions on land route, 30% of the sensitive list will be reduced, and by April 2013, we come down to just 100 tariff lines, and at the same time, we have allowed Pakistan have the benefit of getting down to 100 tariff lines by 2017, which is 5 years hence. So I think it is generous enough on the part of India to accept these non-reciprocal and asymmetrical relationship as was expounded by our Prime Minister quite some years ago. The second comment is that in the negative list of 1,209 items, which Pakistan maintains, this is a banned list. It is not at MFN rates, and most of the items which are of export interest to India are included in this, as Madam Nisha Taneja's latest paper shows. And the third comment is that with regard to the clarity with regard to definitions and other things about the regulations in India, Government of India had taken the proactive approach of having meetings. We've taken our regulators to Pakistan, and on another occasion when the Pakistani businessmen were here, we had a big kind of a meeting with the regulators where the Pakistan businessmen had asked all the questions they required and were satisfied with the answers. And regarding the sensitive list, it is not correct to say that it's only the sensitive list under SAFTA is only against Pakistan. Sri Lanka is also an NLDC, and most of the sensitive list is common between Pakistan and Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka gets no preferential treatment on many of the items. I think more than 90% of the items. Sir, I am doing the sensitive list. I know the tariff lines. That's why I'm talking about it. And regarding the 3 agreements which we signed between India and Pakistan, the implementation mechanism is already being worked out. All the 3 agreements will be implemented. And most of the items which have been covered in your paper are already given in the joint statement. All these we have taken up between the 2 governments. Since most of these issues are still under negotiations, maybe you can't get a correct picture of at what level it is. Thank you so much for all the time.
Thank you. We have this lady and then the gentleman there.
My name is Kavita Ramdas, and I've had the pleasure of working together with Ishrat Saab on a recent op-ed piece that we wrote together in the Indian Express. I am the representative for the Ford Foundation here, but also in my capacity as chair of the Global Agenda Council for the World Economic Forum for India. Believe that the points that were made just now were incredibly important. One issue that I'd like to emphasize and see if we can have comments back is Ishrat Saab and I mentioned the importance of the private sector. And I think what might be interesting for us to look at is whether or not there is a role here for private sector leaders to play a much more visible and a much more prominent leadership role in terms of being able to kind of help move this agenda forward, rather than sort of picking on whether it's IAS officers or anybody else. If in fact there is enough pressure from the private sector on both sides of the border, do we have a better chance, really, of being able to push both our governments forward in ways that will benefit our inter-trade situation? Thank you.
Thank you, Kavita. The gentleman at the back.
Thank you. I'm Javed Naqvi. I'm a journalist and I write for a newspaper called Dawn in Karachi. It's a bit like an American writing for a Cuban paper, if at all there is one. I'm a little picky about this concept of trade. I don't think it necessarily leads to fraternal ties and brotherhood. The largest trading allies are, or partners, sorry, are China and the United States. And they are the most militarized economies. And there's no stopping where they are, if at all they're going to stop anywhere in this endeavor. Now, given the sensitivities here about the bureaucracies and the standoffs, which are again exaggerated by the same television which is representing the same middle classes, in my view, which are the most bloody-minded middle classes anywhere in the world, how on earth are we going to live in peace? That's my question to Dr. Ishrat Hussain.
Aftab, yes, please bring the microphone here.
Thank you. First of all, Dr. Ishrat Hussain, I entirely agree with you on 2 points, that in spite of political differences, trade can flourish. And you mentioned China and Taiwan. I will mention 2 more. Equally contentious neighbors is China and Vietnam, and China and Japan, both countries in which I have served as ambassador. But I also served as Consul General in Karachi. So if I may say a word in defense of bureaucrats and foreign service officers, my distinguished predecessor and very dear friend, Mani Shankar Iyer, and I went out of our way to improve the visa regime in the Consulate General in Karachi, which we both headed at. He opened the mission in '79 and I carried on his work from '85 to '88. And we helped a lot of business people to move across the border. I remember the women's entrepreneurs delegation with Kiran Majumdar and other iconic figures from here, the late Manju Bharat Ram and others, came to Karachi, and there was a lot of movement. So there are bureaucrats and bureaucrats, and you can have good bureaucrats. And I would like to believe that people like Mani Shankar and I were very good bureaucrats.
May I now turn to you?
Thank you very much. I will take the last one. I think you are absolutely right. There is no homogeneity in any group of people. There are good people and there are bad people. I myself have been a bureaucrat for a longish time, so I would not categorize myself in the same category as I've been. But what is the role of the bureaucrats is what I am worried about. And I think what you have done and my friends in the Ministry of Commerce in Pakistan have done is remarkable. Every time I tell Mr. Anand Sharma that he is done a great service as far as the relationship between India and Pakistan is concerned, and thanks to people like you who have actually been helping and doing all the spade work. So there is no doubt in my mind that well-meaning people do make a difference. What I was not arguing was that you should not be engaged. You will be engaged because state-to-state dialogue involves the civil servants. I was talking about dispute resolution, grievance redressal, problem solving, where the private sector, because they have their money at stake, will be in a much better position than you and I can do that. So that is the role I wanted to give to the private sector. And there are a lot of dispute resolutions which really hold back. And when you have this trust deficit for such a long time, what I'm trying to do is to build up those elements which will contribute to a trust between the two countries. And I thought the private sector will do that. And that is the context in which I wanted to give. And everything you said about the points on the joint statement, they are all right. But both in India and Pakistan, my greatest difficulty is the implementation of those policies and the statements. That is much lacking in both the countries. So we write good policy documents, we write good statements, we negotiate very well on those statements, but we don't implement them. So I hope that these agreements which you have in the joint statement will be taken to the logical culmination. So I just wanted to clarify what I had in mind. Now, the first gentleman, if we continue to remain warped in time that, oh, Pindi and Army and ISI, then I don't think we will make any headway at all. The Pakistan Council, I can give you examples in India, and there are people like that, but they don't have voting power. Who gets elected? Either PPP gets elected or PML gets elected. Jamaat Islami used to get 5 seats from my city, Karachi. They can't get even 1 seat from Karachi. So what is Jamaat Islami as far as the politics of Pakistan is concerned? I was taking you the mainstream parties which are going to be contenders for our elections in March, April. They are all united on this. And I don't think the army has given any evidence that they are retarding this process at all. They are represented in the cabinet. There is a defense minister. There is a secretaries committee. Salman has been involved in these secretaries committee where the defense secretary consults the armed forces and brings their views to the table, like the commerce secretary consults the businessmen and brings their views, and the foreign secretary has his own view as to where the foreign policy should fit in. So that's how the decision making is made. So I think we have to get out of this mindset which has not done any good to us. Now I think the fact that the MFN, the use of the word MFN is unfortunate, because what it says in the WTO nomenclature is that it is a non-discriminatory treatment. So if we had another word in a state of most favored nation, which was that we won't discriminate against India as far as the trade is concerned, this journey would have been much earlier come to its fruition. But the fact that it was most favored nation...
I want to interrupt here, if you don't mind. This was an interesting conversation we had. Somebody asked us, by the way, you keep talking about MFN, please translate into Urdu and tell me what it means. Can I become your best friend? Can I go and, as a political leader, can I tell people in my country that you have become my best friend? And by the way, the largest media there is not English media. It's actually Urdu.
So I think on the negative list, let me say that the negative list will be phased out. It is just a matter of timing. So there is an interest lobby, because elections are coming in and the members of the parliament from the rural areas are in majority. We must recognize that. So the agriculture lobby has taken hold of them, and that is why this decision has been delayed. I was present in the cabinet meeting when it was said on December 31st, we will phase out the negative list. I heard this from my own ears. So there is no doubt in my mind, but Mr. Makhdoom Amin Fahim is a politician. He says, I will consult again the lobby which is doing all this agriculture, and then try to convince them and say, we have a lot of mechanisms where we can defend your interests. So he wants to explain to them, he wants to engage in a dialogue. So this is what my understanding of the delay is. Not because anybody is pulling the rug out of the trade relations. And the sensitive list will be phased out, as you said, and India has shown magnanimity by saying by April 2013 the sensitive list will go up. There is a difference between the sensitive list and the negative list. In the negative list, the goods cannot enter the borders. In the sensitive list, they can enter the borders, but they will not have the preferential tariff rate, which is 0 to 5%. So I think people do get confused between the negative list and the sensitive list, and I just wanted to make that clear. I think I've answered the questions which are asked.
Can I cover two more? Yeah.
Yes, please.
Interestingly, to the comment you made, the Indian Minister for Commerce and Industry made an interesting comment, both while it was when the Pakistan delegation came here in Pakistan. He said, you take one step, we will take two. And that has been an attempt, at least in the last year or two, that India has made. And to the lady's point, by the way, Indo-Pak CEO Forum has been set up with completely private sector participation. They've yet to meet. They've just been announced by India announced it a little bit earlier. Pakistan only announced theirs last month. So hopefully there will be some discussion between both of these, which can then go back to whichever authority it needs to. And to the gentleman's point, by the way, China, US is a perfect case in point. Today, if US has to consult anybody, it actually consults China first. What do they have in common? Only the trade.
But they're also moving their armada there.
They are, yes. But they still only consult them first on any major policy, global policy.
Okay, now Surjit wants to make a point, and then we will.
For my good friend Mr. Naqvi, on the role of trade, think about it as following, that whether trade enhances cooperation, etc., may be in question, but think about the opposite side. When you don't have trade, you have a relationship like India and Pakistan do. So therefore, trade may not make you better friends, but it makes you certainly a more congenial, if you will, partners.
Incidentally, the literal translation of most favored in Urdu is pasandida, which is like most favorite. So just imagine, as a Pakistani politician, trying to go and tell them pasandida karna. Huh? Okay, now I request Dr. Rajat Kathuria, Director and Chief Executive of ICRIER, to propose a vote of thanks.
It is indeed my proud privilege on behalf of ICRIER to draw this